Welcome to the latest episode of the Forecast in 5. I'm your host, Seth Katz. Joining us today is Stephen Keller. Stephen serves as Pacific Market President for Verizon. In this role, Stephen leads all business functions across the seven-state market, including California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Hawaii, Northern Nevada, and Northern Idaho. Stephen's journey at Verizon began in 2007 as a district manager in Spokane, Washington. He has since advanced through a diverse range of leadership roles, including director, executive director, and vice president. Stephen's distinguished career began in the U.S. Marine Corps as an infantry rifleman, where he developed a strong foundation in leadership and teamwork under pressure. Welcome, Stephen. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks, Seth. It's great to be here. Appreciate the
Well,
opportunity.
of course. Well, let's get started with the questions. Since California is one of several states that you have responsibility for, can you explain to those watching why the state is so important to Verizon?
Yeah. So as you mentioned in my intro, I started my career in Spokane, Washington. But before I moved over from a previous company to Verizon, I lived in Sacramento, California, where I returned home to from serving in the Marine Corps for about 7 years, 5 active duty, 2 reserve years. So California has always been home. I grew up in the Bay Area. I graduated high school in Sacramento. But more importantly, on the business side, as we've heard in multiple podcasts, especially in the news, California makes the headline news a lot. It's the fourth largest economy in the world. So internationally, this state is known to be, a stalwart. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis that we constantly look at as well. California is the epicenter for tech and media. So to be home based in my home state, to be the senior foremost leader for the West Coast, it's kind of like a wealth of assets and information and what the state provides in terms of how we can grow our business. We all know that Silicon Valley, Hollywood, right here in LA, Google, Netflix, Apple, Cisco, they all have presence here. So when we support and partner with those companies, it creates a huge opportunity for us to continue to invest, build out our network, test our network, especially when it comes to our 5G wideband coverage also. I think more importantly for me, California, as I mentioned before, is not just my home state, but it's a state that I deeply care for because of how involved we are as an organization. So when I had the opportunity to move back out west and be a part of what we're doing, unfortunately and ironically, we had a big wildfire here in Los Angeles, California. And I'm proud to say that disaster relief in my career experience has always been something Verizon not only committed to, but we show up in meaningful ways. And when a crisis like the LA wildfires happened, our company not only showed up in a meaningful way, but we stayed connected. We were involved in the community. Our stores stayed open, and we provided refuge for people that were dramatically and unfortunately impacted by fire directly. So we opened up 9 stores closest to the most impacted areas. And we opened up our stores to become safe havens for masks, water, internet access. Customers and non-customers alike could come into our stores and find refuge in our stores. Those are just some very recent examples how we show up. But not to mention, we also donate money through our Verizon Foundation. So when we think about the fire department, everything that they did for us, we donated $500,000. You think about the first responders, we donated an additional $500,000, and of course, the American Red Cross. But anytime we can partner with the local community, you can always count on Verizon to do that. And I'm a very proud senior leader to have an opportunity to take part in those types of situations.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Stephen. I was actually going to cover that in my next question, but you shared so much valuable information really about what a deep impact that Verizon is having. So let's move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Is there an initiative that you worked on during your career that your tenure with Verizon that you're most proud of?
Yeah, there's 2 things for me where I have to show up in authentic ways. And I think for me, that comes easy, but you have to be able to connect with your employees and your customers alike in genuine ways. So what I mean by that is I'm obviously a Latino man and I have a deep, proud military background. So I try to stay in those lanes when it comes to things I find to be natural and to allow me to show up genuinely and authentically in the community and for my employees. So we have things called ERGs. That stands for Employee Resource Groups. I'm an active member through our Valor Group, which is it's a veteran operated employee resource group. And I'm also part of the SOMOS ERG, which means, for us, by us. Being a Latino and a military veteran, I find that to be very advantageous. I find that to be very gratifying, and it allows me to focus on our military and veterans families, so the valor part of it. It allows me to give back to the community, especially with who I am today and what I'm passionate about. And it allows me to mentor and teach others based on my experiences, my successes, and my failures. So I'm very proud and passionate about those two items because of who I am as a person, who I am in my history, and who I aspire to be in the future.
Excellent. So we have a number of UCLA Anderson students watching who are focused on advancing into an executive leadership
Sure.
role with an industry leader, as you have. Are there some pointers that you could share with these aspiring leaders?
Yeah, first, you should be very proud of the fact that you're a student at UCLA. Not only is it a very respected institution of education, but it's a household name, especially from California, not to mention nationally. I've lived in multiple places with Verizon. I've relocated 8 times. And in all of my travels, being back in California, there is so many advantages, not to mention UCLA. But the real nitty-gritty advice I'd give to somebody is, I always give the advice to new emerging leaders in the organization. I give the advice in terms of manageable, easy to remember ways of advancing your career. What I like to say is the first year you're in a role, you learn your job. The second year, you lap your results, however those results can be measured. And then third, and this is a little vague, but I'll go in a little bit deeper. Um, Achieve a level of mastery. What I mean by that is own your career and get to the point where you can teach others how to do your job. It's one of the best answers you can give somebody in an interview when you're interviewing for a leadership type of role. They're typically going to ask you a question like, "How do you know you're ready?" And one of the best answers you give somebody is, I've taught somebody else how to do my job. That answers the question in so many different ways. I'll give you a couple. One, it tells the person that you're a servant leader, which I'm a big proponent of. Two, it tells them that you've been planning you've been planning along all the way. And then third, when I think about answering the question of I've taught somebody else how to do my job, that's the type of leader that they can expect you to be when you get the role that you're interviewing for. So the next step is when I think about seeking out mentors. A lot of people say mentors and what you want to get from a mentor. I say choose your mentors very carefully. The first rule, I guess I'd put it for a mentor is just ensure your mentor is a truth teller. They're not telling you what you want to hear, but rather they're telling you the truth when it's constructive, and even though it can be a criticism. Second is know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. A mentor, like I said before, is a truth teller. A sponsor is someone who's going to sing your praises even when you're not in the room. And that's where the networking comes into play. That's where the peer-to-peer relationships come into play. That's where people you've worked with or not necessarily worked for know about you or heard about you, and they've heard good things from other people. Those are sponsors. And then, as I mentioned before, servant leadership. I've got my master's degree from Gonzaga University in organizational leadership with a certificate in servant leadership. I felt like that was one of the best routes I could take with a undergrad in business and finance. So when I think about being a servant leader, it's simple. You're leading others. You're responsible for others. That means it's not about you anymore. You're there to uplift others and help your organization shine by enabling others to be successful. And finally, as a veteran, I really rely on discipline. I talk a lot about it. I live a life of discipline. Not easy to do, but it's what works for me in terms of I always lean on discipline when motivation wavers or it's like the inspiration and the motivation kind of subsides because now you've got to dig in. Now you've got to do the hard work. Disciplined leaders are there for the long haul and the long run, and disciplined leaders are something that other people can emulate and look to for motivation and inspiration. I hope that answers your question.
It certainly does, and it's going to be so helpful for our students who are watching. Verizon offers services and solutions to help organizations of all sizes across various industries. Can you share more why serving small businesses and keeping them connected is a priority for Verizon?
Yeah, look all around you. There's small businesses everywhere. Small business are what drives the economy. You see new businesses pop up. You see new ideas and innovative ideas pop up. When you think about technology and how we are trying to connect with small business to enable them to take their ideas from ideation to implementation to execution to profitability, I love watching small businesses partner with Verizon as an example and other companies alike take technology to the next level. We are deeply committed and partnered in every community in which we serve to provide them with technology to advance their businesses, to deepen their profitability, but more or less to succeed long term. Unfortunately, you see a lot of small businesses start up and fizzle away within the first couple of years, sometimes sooner. Through our Small Business Digital Ready program, we provide small businesses nationwide free access to over 50 expert on-demand courses. We curate them, and these small businesses thrive as a result. I've personally seen some small businesses come to our conferences, come to our 5G innovation labs, and test their ideas, ideate with us. We give them advice, we give them opportunities, we give them access and grants. And it's very gratifying to see amazing ideas come to fruition and to be a part of that, a big part of that in our local communities.
So fantastic to hear. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks so much for taking out the time to be with us today, Stephen.
My pleasure. Anytime, any place. Look forward to helping out in the future.
Great. And thanks to our viewers for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode of the Forecast in 5.